All right. Hello, world. Malena Putnam here with Yay Dude and Chicks in Charge. And we are on episode 3 of our Read and Lead book club series. So, what we are doing with this series is going back through the last several years of book club picks. We read a new book every 2 months. And so, I asked our Boss Chick members, what book had the biggest impact on you? And do you want to talk about it? And so today I have our third guest in the series. She is one of our OKC boss chicks, Amy Urbach of Urbach Wine Shop. Welcome to the Coop podcast, Amy.
Thank you. This is so exciting and happy to be here. Happy to be number 3 in a series of, I'm sure, a long line of podcasts coming up. So that's exciting.
Yeah, well, it's so cool because we have read so many incredible books. We've had so many aha moments. And what I love the most is that we're not just like reading things and forgetting them. We are actually putting into practice some of these tips and things that we're getting. So I think that's really cool. And so share with us then the book that you picked and why it had the biggest impact on you.
Well, tell me if my memory is right, because it has been a couple of years since we read this one in book club, but I believe I read it before and then we read it together in book club. And I think that's because it was so impactful to me. I was like, we've got to read this book. And if my memory serves me right, that's what happened. But at the time, I was currently working full-time in an administrative type job for a home builder / land developer here locally in our community, and had the opportunity to do this wine business in particular when some laws in the state of Oklahoma changed, allowing us to direct ship wine to Oklahoma. So before those laws were in place, we weren't able to even do this kind of business in Oklahoma. So it wasn't even on my radar then.
Yeah.
I knew about the company. I knew about the potential of doing it. And I knew that the laws changing were coming. I just didn't know when. So at that time, I was working for a home builder / land developer. I started doing this business on the side and quickly became very excited about it, very passionate about it, and really enjoyed doing it. And so I was like, I've got to figure out how to do this full time and make it work full time. I had spent many years of my life doing administrative style work, bookkeeping style work, corporate type jobs, 8 to 5. And we all know that's not Malena's style. And I was beginning to learn as I started doing other things. That wasn't my style either. And I thought, gosh, am I really as old as I am? And I'm just figuring this out. But the reality of it was, yes, I was this old and just figuring it out. And so I came across Marie's book and just devoured it, basically. I mean, I just devoured everything in it. It was just so eye-opening. And it isn't specifically just about doing the wine business that I am doing now, but it was about figuring out what was my passion, what is my passion, what do I want the rest of my life to be like. And so it started there. That's where it started. And doing the exercises in her book and reading the book really helped me kind of define that and figure it out. Now, like I said, that has been a few years ago. So as I was refreshing my memory, as I was going over the book again and listening to some of the book again, I'm like, wow, I still have a lot of work to do. And so it's not going to hurt me one bit to go back over this information and even refine where I am now in this process and who I am in this process now, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And so the book is Everything is Figureoutable by Maria Forleo.
Right.
For those of you who have, I mean, first of all, I think who hasn't heard of her because she's been around for a while. She's got a very popular B school that she does. And so she works a lot with entrepreneurs. She's very motivational. She's someone that is very multi-passionate too. And she shares a lot of that journey in her book as well. And, it's interesting when you say, Amy, because I did know you before you started the wine business, but just in hearing you recap that about what you used to do, that does not seem like you at all. So isn't that interesting?
I know. It really is. If we take it back to when I left high school many years ago, it started there, and I took a route that I thought was the most practical route, the most
Mm.
secure route, the route that would be the most not comfortable, but the most secure, that would provide a steady income, that would provide benefits, that would provide all the things that I thought I needed to do coming out of high school and elevating my life to the level that I wanted it to be. You know, I didn't come from a very prominent school. I grew up in a small town. We didn't have a lot of money. And I just thought I have to do what's most practical. So I take it all the way back there, and then just through therapy, realizing I spent a lot of years creating these habits and these skills that weren't really my will set, but that's what I did because that's what I needed to do. So that was a big aha moment for me in therapy and reading this book at the same time, realizing I was good at what I was doing because I had made myself be good at that, because that's what I thought I should be doing.
Yeah, and isn't that interesting? I know that our listeners, and for those of you who are viewers on our YouTube channel, can so relate to this because um, for many, and that's what we talked about last week in Untamed, is that society will tell us what they think we should do.
Mhm.
And often that is, it's a safety net of choose something that you know you can make money. I was raised by my grandparents, but I always, ever since I read Little Women, I wanted to be an author. And she had done it by the time she was what, I think a late teen or early 20s. Can't remember when she published that book, but I thought, well, I could do, if she could do that, I can do that. And that was even a long time ago. So things have progressed so much for women now. And I remember my grandfather saying, well, that's fine if you want to write a book, but you need to get a degree.
Mhm.
Like, don't study novel writing in college, get a broadcast degree or journalism or something. And I did end up, with a journalism scholarship, and I have a degree in broadcast. So obviously that served me. But I still ended up writing books later because that was a passion. So I love that what you're saying about taking the time to figure out what your passion is. And so you're saying that on a big scale of everything is figureoutable, including what is my purpose in life? What is
Exactly.
my passion? What am I going to be really good at, and not get up in the morning and think, oh my God, I don't want to go to work again,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people love their 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever that is. And so it's not at all about, poo-pooing people that want to be in corporate and all that. We've got a lot of boss chicks that love their corporate lifestyle. And, if you work in retail and restaurant and some of that, you do have some hours that you have to do there. So the important thing is what I'm doing with those hours. Am I feeling like that I am providing the best value and really happy at the end of the day when I tuck myself into bed, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I love how Marie describes all problems or dreams are figureoutable. So it's all a dream or a problem. So it's not just, well, this is a big problem in my life, how am I going to figure it out? Well, this is a big dream in my life, how am I going to figure it out? And that's kind of where I got to with the point in making this transition. But then if it is a problem, it's not figure outable, then it's not really a problem, it's a fact of life or a law of nature. So that can be death, that can be as simple as gravity. I'm not going to pick up and just fly myself around physically, because it's a law of nature that I cannot do that. So how am I going to figure out that I want to travel? I'm going to get on an airplane and go, right? Death is inevitable, but there are circumstances around that law of nature that is figure outable. And if it's not figure outable, then is it something that you really care enough about? If it is, if you
Right.
think it's a dream or a problem, do you really care enough about it to figure it out? And that's okay too. That's okay if it's not something. And I think for a lot of years, I probably thought there's a dream there, but again, in a season of life that I'm in, it's not important enough to me to figure it out.
Well, and you made an important point there, because if everything is figure outable, but the figuring it out is going to take some time and
Mhm.
resources, money, maybe a change of location, that kind of thing. So as we're figuring it out, there's all those little roadblocks and things that we have to do. So it's like the little mini figure-outables along the way
Yes.
to get
Yeah.
to the big one. So you're right, that takes a lot of intention and sacrifice. And Julie Rising, who is a mindset and empowerment coach, was on our first episode. And I recall a conversation with her where instead of using the word sacrifice, she likes the word substitute.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can say, instead of saying, oh, I'm sacrificing, this life for the next one, to think about, what am I substituting? Because that's really what it is. We
Yep.
still end up having, 24 hours in a day, which I know we each have really a different number depending on what our duty and how many other humans we're responsible for. But that's really, really a good distinction there. So it's like, is the timing right? So let's go over. She has 3 of the most common excuses as to why people don't go for their dreams or figure it out. So let's start here. I'm gonna put my little readers on for those of you on YouTube. The 3 most common excuses. The first one, I don't have the time. And so she says, do you really? If it's important enough, you'll make the time. If not, you'll make an excuse. It is really a matter of priorities. And I love that. She talks a lot about, looking at your schedule. And then, if you're making time for Netflix or whatever that other, anything that you use, your social media, scrolling through it, if you're making time for that instead of often some of these little steps, a lot of what figuring it out is just a bunch of little step. So I love that one. Was that an excuse that you told yourself before?
Oh, for sure. I think we all fall in that category of not. I mean, it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I just don't have the time for that." And in reality, is what are we prioritizing in the time? Now, I did, and I have learned how to honor my best operating times. When am I at my best? When am I at my most creative? When am I feeling the best? And for me, that's early morning, early afternoons. And so I was finding that after I was going to work from 8 to 5 and pouring everything I had into that particular career, that job, whatever tasks, whatever, I was spent by the end of the day, right? And I didn't have the capacity to put it. I needed to Netflix and chill for sure. So and so I had to honor and recognize that it wasn't about that I wasn't that I was too busy. It was that my time and energy was going elsewhere, and so I had to really evaluate that and figure out, can I step away from other things to give this the time that it needs? And so I think that's twofold. I think, yes, we're busy. We are scrolling our social. We are watching Netflix. We are just vegging. But self-care time is different than that to me, and finding your best operating time for yourself.
Yeah, no, that's really true. One of the things I was trying to figure out this year, whenever we did our vision boards and set our goals for the year, was, that I wanted to get in shape again. And I really had not made the time for it. And I was prioritizing work, over my self-care and wellness and all of that. And so, I took a look at my schedule and said, well, I do. I like to sit around in the mornings on my couch, and I do look through social media. And then I will end up doing some social media work for clients for Yay Dude. But that was definitely time that I could have been exercising.
Sure.
Just having that shift, you make the decision and then make that shift in your time, because obviously social media is going to be there for me later. It doesn't go away. Whereas
It does not go away.
you've got that energy that you have in the morning
Yep.
and for you through early afternoon. So when that passes, maybe we won't have the energy, to work out later or do some work later or network or whatever it is that we need to do. So that's a really good one. So listeners, if you are telling yourself that excuse, then just take a look at your time and say, what could I shift? What could I substitute?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, I'm going to substitute it with this other thing that's going to get me closer to figuring out what my problem is or getting me closer to my dream. Number two is,
well, let me expand on that too, because I love your focus, pocus, hour, time. You know, I can't even explain it like you do, but I'll use your burst of focus for 10 minutes, or I'll think, Malena says take 10 minutes and just focus on this. And I do that, or the 30 minutes. Okay, I'm going to take 30 minutes and I'm going to clean the kitchen up, but then that's it. I'm done and I'm moving on to the next thing. That has been super helpful with segmenting that time out and allowing myself to do the things I need to get done, because I can't sit down and focus on work if I know the kitchen's a mess. So just take the 30 minutes, clean it up, and then get to work, get your butt in there and get to work. So
yeah, I
that
love
has been, that to me is very relevant in this area as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so Focus Pocus has definitely helped me a lot because I tell everyone I've got a squirrel brain circus, however you say that. But it's so easy to get distracted these days. And if you are working on multiple things, so taking that time for those focus zones. So if I've got a focus bubble, which is what I started with in yoga in the mornings, and then now I've kind of expanded that to where I actually have a focus burst, which is a 20-minute workout. And I use the Fitness Plus app. So that's the other thing, is identifying what tools and resources are going to help you with that, because and that's why I love this. Actually goes right into the second part of the second excuse: I don't have the money. I mean, that is, and what a great excuse it is, because we do believe we probably don't, or that we should be spending it on, just like you said, doing the practical things on the type of job. We do that with our money too, to say, oh, well, I shouldn't take this money that could go for a bill or paying off debt or whatever. But the interesting thing is a lot of getting started doesn't take any money. And that was kind of her point here, is more often than not, you don't even need the money. There are plenty of free resources on the internet to at least start. I mean, Google those steps of what you would need to do. Like for you starting your wine business, yeah, there was a whole process. There was training. There were a lot of things that you had to do before you ended up probably spending the money on, some branding and marketing and those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I struggle with this a lot, is not rolling something out if it's not 100%. And that includes having the money to have the business card or the website or the fancy equipment that you need to get started. And you have to be willing to just start with what you have and with where you're at. And then that comes, later. That money does come, but you've got to be willing to get started to even get there.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. And she adds here too, if you actually do need money, say for the business venture, there are plenty of alternative financing available from side jobs, spending less. Again, and just like we had that shift in our time, let's have that shift in our budget too, and look at that and say, where could I shift? And then selling off some things, crowdfunding, all of those. So just looking at it, different things are going to work for different people. But I know I just recently shifted things in my budget, and it feels really good. And then, and actually, so I just had a blowout with Whitney Pratt's, one of our chicks here in Oklahoma City. And I was telling her about that. I literally, I'm 50 years old. I did not know that there were credit cards that were 0% APR that you could transfer a balance from one credit card to another. Now, because I was someone that always paid off my credit card for one reason, so I didn't really need that. But then when I hit a credit, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm going to start, I have this interest that I'm paying. Like I didn't know. So it's one of the things that I love. It's like, I knew that I could figure that problem out of how to reduce my debt and be able to pay it off, sooner. So I don't feel like I'm paying for a long, long time, just because I'm not used to having debt. And so that was something new to me, and it was causing me anxiety. Well, so I'm getting my haircut and blown out with Whitney. And so I tell her about that. And so then she's like, oh, share that with me because I've got one that I have some interest going on and I'd love to shift that over. So Nerd Wallet is what I'll recommend. You guys, they have a
Awesome.
lot of great articles and things like that. But that's one of the reasons that I love what we do here at Chicks in Charge, because we will be vulnerable and share those things with
Mhm.
each other to say, hey, I've got this, sticky issue coming up, or I'm going through this, does anyone have any ideas or solutions or things that we could potentially do to figure it out. So that's one of the things about everything is Figureoutable, is have a great flock of people that you can
Yep.
present your situation to and see what they say. So yeah, we're like crowdsourcing our
Yeah.
figure outing with each other. So
Also, Marie talks about in there when she's trying to decide what she's wanting to do and kind of her direction, she talks about what's the worst case scenario that could happen. Okay, so I go this direction and it's a total fail. What's the worst case that can happen? Well, I don't have a job because I quit my job to go for this thing I'm working towards, and so
mhm,
then I have no money to pay my bills. And then she's like, let's go even deeper than that. Okay, so then I lose my place to live because I can't pay my rent or my electricity, and then I'm living with friends or sleeping on a couch somewhere. I mean, how bad can it get?
yeah,
The reality is it's not probably going to get that bad. And what am I going to do to fix it if it does get that bad? Well, I'm going to go wait tables. I mean, if it came down to it that I needed the money and I wasn't selling wine like I was, could be selling or should be selling. I just let my business go to pot. I'm gonna go find something to do. And I'm not saying waiting tables is a bad thing, but it's gonna be something I know I can do. I know I can make some money at it, and it's gonna get me moving in the right direction again. Whatever, I can go back to the corporate world. I can go back to bookkeeping, the bookkeeping world. There are things I can do. Worst case scenario, if the money runs out, right? If I can't find the money, if I can't make the money, if I can't sell something, there is something figure outable about that.
yeah. That is such good advice, because that is what our brains do, is that we create that worst case scenario
Mhm.
and then we hook it all on that without realizing that, well, okay, well, what would I do if it's the worst
Mhm.
case? And so you have a solution for that. Well, maybe that is your plan D. Maybe there's
Mhm.
all those others along the way. And I love that. And what she shares in the book too is there's not just one way of doing things.
Mhm.
And so creating multiple solutions that could potentially work out. I am really big on trying something, and then as I'm trying it, if I
Mhm.
figure out that it's not working the way that I thought it would, and then I'll just pivot. And we all had to learn how to pivot, during
Yep.
the pandemic, and we did that with our businesses and things. But what's interesting is even now that things are opened up, I still find myself pivoting quite often in my different lines of business on, well, will this system be better? And then if I didn't feel like it was as smooth as I want, well, then let me try it this way. Let me try it this way. And so really being open and flexible and not thinking like, definitely not that black or white thinking, but thinking, well, I'm going to try this and I'm going to give it, maybe it's a certain number of days, or maybe it's a certain number of attempts. And then to
Mhm.
see what could I tweak about it,
Mhm.
instead of what so many of us do, is that our mindset immediately goes to, oh, see, I knew that wouldn't work. That was just
Right.
a huge fail. And I don't even know what I thought that I could do that. And da da da. It's like, switch that, because probably what we're going through is just a temporary
Mhm.
situation. And maybe we've got, other negative voices coming in our heads that maybe didn't want us to pursue whatever it is we're doing anyway. So we have to be really careful about that, because that
Sure.
can impact um, our mindset and the decisions that we're making there too. The third uh, excuse that she said we do the most is, I don't know how, or I don't know where to start. And that's a biggie to say, oh, well, I think it's going to be too hard.
Mhm.
So I'm just not even going to, that's above my pay grade. I know nothing about it. And so I love, though, just what we were saying earlier about with the internet,
Yeah.
we can really figure almost anything out. I've
Yeah,
changed the
well,
battery in my car before just from a YouTube video, never thought I would do something like that, but there
I
you go.
know. Well, and we can say, I remember when there wasn't the internet, right? And so we had to do a old-fashioned way of researching. But I watch my stepson these days, and he has learned how to put together a gun on YouTube. He's learned how to, disassemble and reassemble, like the Tropicana radio clock she talks about in the book. I mean, he's figured all of that out, and we've got so many resources in front of us now that there really is no excuse why you can't figure it out. Somebody's done it before. It may not be exactly like you want to do it, but somebody's done it before, and there's a way to learn from others that way.
Yeah, I love that. And really that leads right into why it's so important to have a network of people that you can go to
Hmm.
help too. I love constantly, building. It's like building my database of skills that are outside of myself because I
Hmm.
know, oh, I don't know how to do that, but I know someone who does.
Exactly.
Here at Yay on Broadway, where I'm recording our Chicks Clubhouse, I had someone yesterday ask about, a graduation party to have here. And she was like, do you have a caterer? Do you have a, bar person? And I thought, yeah, I've got lots. Like, because I network. And then what happened at our Chicks Luncheon Wednesday was a guest came who has her own bar service. So I met yet another person who
Hmm.
can go and do that. And so a lot of times on these, figuring things out, yeah, we may not just be able to sit there and think of it on our own, but whether it's the internet or whether it's tapping into the other people in your community, there will be an answer somewhere. And
There
what
will
I
be.
think is really cool too is that I feel like people are willing to help each other, but what the hard part is us asking to begin with.
Right.
The
Right.
ask is hard.
Yeah. Well, and a good example of that, and because you're in the group text of us close girls, but someone hacked my internet account or my Instagram account a week ago, and
Mhm.
I know there's more bigger problems than getting your account hacked. But when it's you use it very much so for your marketing and your social media and that sort of thing, it's a big deal to lose everything and access to it. And so I just
Sure.
reached out to you girls in our group text, and I was like, "This is what's happened." And we do have a social media expert in our group, along with a lot of experts in everything else too. But
Yeah.
it just through that process, it wasn't instant, it wasn't immediate. Thank goodness it wasn't a super long time. I mean, 48 hours, I think, is what it took. But with help from you guys and me even texting myself, this is Figureoutable. I mean, I literally sent that to
Yes, you
myself and
did.
reminded myself, this is Figureoutable. I'm going to figure this out. I'm not creating a new account. I'm not starting over. I'm going to figure this out. And I did. I Googled, I researched, I asked you guys, I tried everything. And I honestly don't even know how it happened, but I got it back.
Yeah.
So, it's just being determined to figure it out. Even if you have to walk away from it for a moment of time, a week, a month, a year, whatever this thing is you're trying to figure out, give it the space it needs, but also come back to it when you need to and really put the effort into figuring it out if it's important to you.
Right. If it's important to you.
Yeah.
That's so true. I know. And the thing is, we've talked about it with our careers and that it's almost like a muscle. The more you use it, then you're more comfortable with
Mhm.
not stressing out and have the anxiety the next time something happens. Because I swear I could be feeling great about one area and then all of a sudden something comes from it. Maybe it's my personal life, or maybe it's like my daughter yesterday, her car wasn't working. And one place said, oh, you need a new engine. Okay, well, hello, $8,000. And I said,
Right.
no, you're getting a second opinion. And so she took it to the second place and they're like, no, your engine's fine. You need a battery and a valve repair or something. But, two maintenance costs
Mhm.
later, but it's going to be $700 versus 8,000. And
Right.
of course, now I want her to go back and get her money back from the first place. Like, why would I even pay you the maintenance fee for the diagnostic when you
Mhm.
obviously diagnosed it completely wrong? And they were like blaming it on a recall or something. So the lesson in that is let's be okay with getting multiple multiple solutions or possible outcomes, because if she would have stopped at the first one, how expensive, but B,
and unnecessary.
unnecessary, but also that is something that, if that's something you've always done, is you just take someone's word for it and then you move along with that, instead of, especially when it's expensive, especially when it's your life, it's your time, all that. Why not check out the other options to see what could be possibly better? So I do think we get more comfortable with that, because a part of us is like, oh, I don't have time to like go check out something else. And like, is this really the best option and all that? And the other thing is, if you have people in your life that can help you with doing some of the research. So if you are sitting there and you're a small business owner, or, maybe you're someone that has sort of control issues, because I was one of those. I wanted to do everything by myself. I thought I would have to take the time to train, which seems overwhelming. But also, I just thought, I guess, that I could do it better and didn't trust other people to do it. Well, so now that I have a team and I can go, same thing with, putting this podcast. Like, I put off this podcast so long. And what Maria Forleo says in the book is, start before you're ready.
Yep.
Because if you wait for that to be like, oh, well, if this happens, then I'll be ready. Well, guess what? Something else is going to happen in between there. And then we'll say, oh, well, then now I have to wait for this thing. And so it's just, you keep kicking the can down the road. And I mean, look, Amy, if you kept kicking the can down the road, look at how many people you would not have met. I know last night you just had another, wine event, and, you're doing really well, and you would still be right now in that corporate job and not be on this podcast talking to me.
Exactly. I'd be at the office. For sure. Yeah. And just starting before you're ready. I mean, I didn't have the income that I needed to replace the income I was leaving. I didn't have even the events lined up that I needed to have lined up, but I knew it's where the direction I needed to go to get things rolling, to get the momentum going. And so, just through going through worst case scenarios and possible, ways to get past that, if that's where it went. And the reality is, these worst case scenarios are likely never going to happen anyway. It's our fear telling us this is going to happen. It's our fear saying that tiger's going to get you if you come out of the cave, kind of thing. And that's not where we are in our world these days. We are not just surviving anymore. That's not our daily objectives. Is just to live to the next day, where our fear is so much more manageable now than it used to be, just trying to live day to day.
Right.
But it's a DNA innate built into us survival from the minute we're born, right?
Well, and exactly what you said is that you have to, even though you may not have everything figured out yet, you have to have that confidence and believe in what you want enough that it's going to be worth it to go through that, and tell yourself, like, I can figure it out. I know that I am smart and strong, and I'm worthy of having this life that I want to create. And I love, earlier in the podcast, you said, elevate. And that's what our theme is all year, and why we're doing this series too, because we know when we can listen to these experts and we can talk about it with each other, we can figure out what things we need to do to take those next steps to being able to do that. So when I kept kicking the can down the road last year on this podcast, because I thought at the latest it would be like October when I started it. But then I ended up, finding the space. And then again, oh, well, now I'm doing this. So kick the can down the road more. But I was like, Malena, what's keeping you from doing it is that you don't know where to stream it, where to host it now. It's like I didn't want to be my own producer. And so find those things that are causing you friction along the process, and then ask yourself, like, who do I know that could do that or would do that? Is that something I could give to a team member? Or for those of you that maybe don't have a team, is there something that you could trade out with another, business owner, where if your skill set is one thing and theirs is another, is that something you guys could trade? So again, there's going to be a solution to it. But after I did that and said, hey, Peyton, who's our account executive here, like, if you can this is what I need figured out. If you can do that, then we're going to do the podcast and we're going to have a new episode every week. And you're going to help me be accountable because I'm not going to be my own producer. I will help, find the guests. But luckily they're all of our boss chicks. So that makes it a lot easier. But yeah, so doing that, I was able to figure it out because otherwise I would still be kicking the can down the road as well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
are there any other quotes or anything from the book that really stick out to you that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, I mean, there was just so much. One of my favorite things about her book is that when you are working on a particular thing and you're asking yourself these questions, she gives you a scale to rate the importance of it or the reality of it. And so that really helps you think about what you're trying to accomplish and how plausible is that, or how important is that to you? And if it's not, then you need to reevaluate what you think the direction is that you're wanting to go. So if it's a dream in your mind, but you go through this process of evaluating it and things aren't falling on the scale in the direction of important, highly important, then you probably need to rethink what that particular dream is and look at something else, focus on something else. Now, I think generally speaking, for me, it was more about getting out of the corporate structured world and finding more of my creativity. Sure, the thing that I do the most and that is earning me the income now is the wine business, but there's also the other things that have allowed me to get back into my creative self and, painting and making jewelry and things like that. And those are things that I can share with others as well as the wine, but it's allowing me the time to do those things that really are where my wheelhouse is, and stepping back from doing the things that I thought were the most practical, most even important things, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's so good. In summary, she's telling us that really clarity comes from engagement. So when we are feeling stuck, the best thing to do is take some action because that's where we're going to start feeling unstuck, was just to put something in motion. And then I love how she ends with this: the world needs your unique gift.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So never forget that you are a unique human being. I always say with personal branding, you are your own superpower, because whatever it is that your unique way that you look at the world, express yourself, all of that, I love it. And, I know that we are big Shania Twain, fans, and her new album is Queen of Me, which I just love that thinking of like, yes, I'm going to express myself however I want to. And you can be the king of you, but I'm the queen of me. And for us to really feel that, embody that, see what that means for you. Here in February, we've been talking about self-love and self-care. And a part of that is acknowledging and being okay with expressing yourself and being who you are, and how you want to live your life, from work to your personal life to creative expression to style, like the whole thing. I feel like this really speaks to all of those things.
It absolutely does. And even during this process, like I said, I read this book a few years ago and really catapulted this decision where I am now. But in that interim of time, there were times and I thought, is this really, I just need to go back to doing what I was doing before. This isn't really working. This isn't really making me the money I thought I was going to make. I just can't, I don't want to do this anymore, just over and over and over. And so, like I said, going back through this again, having those people around you to remind you you're doing what you're doing because you're supposed to be doing it, even when the self-doubt comes in, even when the fear comes in, even when those inner demons are telling you that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You've got to just keep pushing forward, because the dream was put in you for a reason. It's there. You keep going back to it. And that's what she talks about, is like, you keep going back to that dream or that resolution of that problem for a reason. It's because it's there on purpose. And so you can't let the naysayers and the doubt and the fear come in and talk you out of that, because you'll be right back where you started. And you're going to be more regretful than that you didn't do it than if you went through and even failed forward and took the next step.
Absolutely. Such good advice. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today in the Coop Chicks in Charge podcast. We thank everyone for listening. We hope that you'll subscribe, like, and share it with your friends, because we know that either you're stuck on something or you have a friend or family member who is stuck on something, that this might just be the thing that they need to help them take that little action that they need to become unstuck. And I would love to hear from you all on what, how that has happened and kind of what your next steps are on figuring out your dream, and getting unstuck. And if you want more information on Chicks in Charge, we've got that in our show notes. It's chicksincharge.club. If you are someone around the country that is looking at, maybe wants to start a chapter in your city, we are open to growing chicks across the country. I just had, I'm having a call with someone in the Chicago area soon. And so that's cool. We just love that we can share this with you all through the podcast, through our YouTube channel, and of course, in person at our events. So thank you so much, Amy. You guys can find out more about Amy, because if you want to be a wine girl, Amy can hook you up with that too, right, Amy?
That's right. That's right. We're all in this together.
Right.
So if you want to know more information about what I do and how I do it, you're welcome to reach out to me as well. So
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys again next week.